Everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the 2024 New York 3rd Congressional District special election. It occurred on Tuesday night, and it yielded a pretty good result for the Democrats. So we'll be talking about it, and I'll be, more importantly, giving my analysis of what it means for the November elections. And obviously, before I get into that, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I should do next. And I think that about does it. We're just going to start here. So Tom Suozzi, and I learned officially that is the correct way to pronounce his last name, defeated Mazi Pillup in this special election on Tuesday night. He won the seat by about 8%. This is a Biden plus 8 seat on Long, as you can see, this is on Long Island of New York, right? They actually pointed out here it's on Long Island. This part is actually in Queens, Brooklyn, but not really in New York City itself. The larger portion of the district is in Nassau County, which is entirely on Long Island. And this was a race that was very highly watched because it's a competitive congressional special election, right? This is a seat that voted for Joe Biden by 8% in 2020, then elected a Republican congressman in 2022. So it did flip. It changed hands with a Democratic victory in this election. So, again, Tom Suozzi won by 8%. He did 0.4% worse than Joe Biden, so not by a lot. But again, he essentially matched Biden. And then this was a seat that George Santos, you probably remember that name, won by 8% in November of 2022. In the midterms, as a red wave swept New York, Lee Zeldin, I think, won this district by a pretty similar amount, if not more. So Democrats really had quite the comeback here because they performed pitifully across Long Island and parts of New York City in 2022. Now they come back and they match Joe Biden's 2020 numbers with Tom Suozzi. So there are a couple takeaways that I think you can have for this race, and all of them are fair. I'm going to list two here. The first is that Tom Suozzi won, but there was a substantial candidate quality difference in this race. So the first thing that I think we have to remember is that Tom Suozzi, it says it right here, was a former congressman for this seat. He represented this district until January 2023. He last won in 2020, and then obviously he was not the nominee in 2022 who lost to George Santos, and the seat flipped. But, he as the former congressman had some name recognition, and he also had some money, and he was, he knew how to campaign. So he was certainly someone that I think knew what he was doing, at least in terms of a campaign. And more importantly, the experience, I think, was a stark contrast from Mazi Pillup, who I think was a first-time candidate and did not have a lot of money. I think she got outspent by a pretty good amount by Suozzi. And that matters in a race like this because special elections, they don't always have the best turnout. We saw 170,000 votes cast in this election. There were 270,000 cast in the 2022 election, and there were probably even more in the 2020 election. So, a lot of the turnout and the results that come out of these specials is because of, which candidate has better ground game or advertising, or which candidate, is able to let voters know that they're running and that they're going to be voting on this day. So that was, I think, amplified in this race. And then the second factor was, to me, the George Santos, kind of variable in here. Santos, as a Republican, really harmed the GOP brand in this district. I think the fact that, he lied about a lot of the things he put on his resume when he's running, and the fact that he's now in legal trouble for other things on top of that, is just a bad look for the GOP because, I didn't watch the debate for this race, and no one really watches congressional debate. Like, not to say that you shouldn't watch congressional debates. I think people should watch their congressional debates, but, most people don't have the time. I don't live in this district, and I think the average voter does not have time to watch U.S. House race debates, even if they are interesting. But the biggest takeaway that a lot of people had from the debate and from the campaign as a whole is that the issue of integrity was raised a lot by Suozzi, and Pillup, as a Republican running to replace the George Santos, I think really had a hard time differentiating herself from George Santos. Now, obviously, Tom Suozzi had the handicap of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's not very popular in most swing areas of the country. This district is no exception. So obviously he had to deal with that. But I think that the Santos issue really harmed Pillup, especially because she was not the most well-known candidate. So those two things, I think, were a big part of the reason why Suozzi not only won, but won by a decisive amount. And now my broader take about this election, I think this matters more, is that it doesn't say too much but November 2024. So for starters, special elections are good. Like I like special elections because they are generally good indicators of what you would expect the general election to look like, right? Like and I'm going to write about this. I would hope if I can stop procrastinating, but the best argument for a Democratic overperformance in 2022, obviously before Election Day, was that they did well in special elections, right? Like Pat Ryan won, Mary Peltola won, Democrats overperformed in Minnesota and Nebraska, and those performances were in line with with a blue-leaning environment or an even environment. And ultimately, we got a slightly red-leaning environment, but Democrats did really well in the Senate, and they did almost as well in the House. So special elections were, more predictive of the eventual result than polls or approval rating or other factors. So that, to me, is worth noting. And the same thing applies to other cycles, 2020, 2018. Generally speaking, special elections are predictive. However, I would argue that 2024 could be different. For sure, no. We have to wait at least a little bit, but it's likely that the discrepancy between the average Democrat like Tom Suozzi running for a congressional race or a governor's race or a Senate race and Joe Biden will be massive. Biden is so unpopular right now, he's not even close to most other Democrats, running in these races. So even though Tom Suozzi and other Democrats might be doing well in special elections, I don't think that means that Joe Biden is going to do well in November. Obviously, Donald Trump is not popular either. I think 2020 could, or 2024 could really rival 2016 for how hated the top two candidates are. But we're really going to have to think about how we approach November, because the special elections are good for Democrats, but the polls are not, and the approval ratings are just atrocious for Joe Biden. So, this is a good sign for Democrats, and it's the result they wanted to get. But at the same time, you have to remember that the Democrats running in these special elections are so much more popular than Joe Biden that it might not even matter. So I will talk more and more about the November election as we get closer. If you don't want to miss any of my coverage, please subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications if you don't want to miss an upload. Like the video. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you all in the next one.